Great. Now we've just arrived in Overstrand, and Overstrand is just in between Cromer and Great Yarmouth. It's got lots of history. Now, it's really interesting actually, the fact that this church that we're actually at now, St Martin's, has these stories of the ghostly train that travels through, and it goes right through the church and ends up going down to the actual old railway line. Now that's a story that people say, that's what other paranormal investigators have come up with, that the ghost train comes through the church for no reason, that there wasn't a train track here. So one thinks about why. You go look at the why. It wasn't a train at all, it's what people think was a train when they read the descriptions. We're talking about a stagecoach, we're talking about horse and cart galloping through. And that's why people have reported hearing the screeches. The screeches are the sounds of the wheels, the horses as they're rearing through and being whipped to go faster. And it's interesting that the stagecoach and the horses is also connected to the Shuck. Now, for people who don't know about the Shuck is the black beastie of East Anglia, or better still, Mercia in East Anglia, the old counties. And from that point of view, there's been lots of different talks about the Shuck. Now, what's interesting in relation to where we are sort of coming out from, Cambridge, is Cambridge happens to have its own Shuck. It couldn't possibly have a Shuck that's the same as the other counties, for good Lord. No, it has to have something that's so much more paramount, so prominent. So it comes up with the Black Panther and the Black Puma and the Black Dog that roams Cambridge, because it has to be slightly different from the rest of the world. So and that's what it's done. It's come up, but in reality, there was two counties, not three. There wasn't Suffolk, Norfolk, Cambridgeshire, and obviously Huntingdon, which is Huntingdonshire. It was Mercia and East Anglia. Now, bring back to this church to the fore. We've got the stagecoach rolling through with the actual horse and cart, and then we've also got the Shuck, as it were. Now, the Shuck is said to still roam these parts. It was only in 1948 that the last Shuck sighting was recorded here, and it was actually from one of the clergymen from this particular church, which is quite interesting because it had its restoration in 1939. Now in 1939, they actually, when they were doing the restoration, they did part of the extension of the church, and they found some rather interesting things underneath the church that at the time it was decided that they would be left there, never to be found again. So what they do, like most people do, you build on top of it. So they built the extension onto the church, and as we will see from the pictures that Janice has taken, you'll see that we've got the original watermark at the beginning of the entrance, which was the traditional way of welcoming the clergy to welcome the parishioners into the church by dabbing into the walker and "May God go with you," "God bless you, my child," as they entered the church, not when they leave. When they leave, sometimes the rector or the priest would actually shake the hand. That's what they did. So here we have a church that's got interesting things about the Shuck, the horse and cart, the stagecoach, and most importantly, it actually connects into where we've been earlier on today, and that's into Queen Boudica, because this area was very, very strong in it. Now, this was built on an earlier chapel, which is often the case with churches. But let us not lose sight that the original church of this particular parish fell into the sea quite some years ago, a lot of years ago. And so when this church was still a chapel, it was then converted to be St Martin's. But the church actually collapsed into the sea in 1399. I think there's lots of history about that as well. So when we look at the church, we can see the stagecoach horses, we can see that we've got the Shuck. Let's look at Boudica, let's look at King Richard III, and let's look at, most importantly, Lady Anne Neville. Now, King Richard III and Lady Anne Neville, we know obviously husband and wife. The last real King of England, from my own opinion, and from many scholars' opinion, will be that King Richard III is the true and last monarch of the English Dominion Kingdom, as it were. So today, I don't think we felt anything different here today. We haven't seen anything, but it's interesting to get the feel of the church. Sadly, it has been modernised quite a bit. It's the only church I've ever seen with electric candles, which I found a little bit perturbing in today's world. Yes, it does actually have electric candles instead of real ones. And it's a shame that obviously because of the restoration it had in 1939, with some good donations from the local community. They've obviously had the windows and things replaced, so a lot of the original features of the chapel are totally unrecognisable. So hold that thought, we'll revisit that again when we make the connection between Lady Anne Neville here, the wife of King Richard III, and we make that direct connection to Myrtle Neville, the landowner of the area of Spooks Hill in Ramsey, Warboys districts of Cambridgeshire.